Welcome back. We are here at Classic Talk with Bing and Dennis. Today we're speaking with Stephanie Blythe.
Now we're talking about your career. Everything seems to be so smooth. And of course, great singer. What else can you think about? Now, do you have any moments you feel like, this is not for me?
I had one gigantic struggle in my life that I for a long time was very hesitant to talk about publicly, but I talk about it now because I think it's important for people to understand that these kind of things happen to everybody. As I said, I went directly from my undergraduate school to the Met.
Right.
And it was pretty, I grew up in a very small town and went to school in a very small town. And I found myself all of a sudden living in New York City on my own, working at the Metropolitan Opera, singing at the Metropolitan Opera,
Right.
covering people like Marilyn Horne. And it was really kind of mind-blowing. And I was doing very, very well. And about midway through the second year that I was there, one evening, it was about midnight, I had this very odd feeling. I couldn't sleep. It was like I had like electric shocks all over. I couldn't, there was something wrong with me and I couldn't calm down. I took a bath, I tried to calm down, I couldn't calm down. I was hyperventilating. I called a friend in California and I said, Alan, there's something wrong and I can't sleep. I can't calm down and I don't know what's wrong with me. And I was afraid maybe I was having a heart attack or something was wrong. So he said, I want you to hang up the phone, I'll call Pat and go to the hospital. So I did. That's exactly, I called my teacher who got there in a cab immediately and the two of us went to the hospital because I didn't feel like I could call 911. This just didn't seem like that kind of emergency. It was just a feeling of unease. And I went to the emergency room and I sat there for quite a while and we were talking about, I was trying to calm myself down and it didn't work. And finally they saw me and they did an EKG and a physical and everything was fine. And they were going to send me home. And fortunately, an intern came in and he saw me and he said, no, don't release her. I'd like to talk to her. And he said to me, you're exhibiting classic signs of anxiety disorder. You had an anxiety attack, and I want you to see this. He gave me some Ativan, and he gave me a referral to see a doctor to have a total workup, and just so that I knew that there was nothing wrong with me physically. And I went to the doctor, and there was absolutely nothing wrong with me. He said, you're perfectly healthy. Your heart is perfectly healthy. You had an anxiety attack. And I thought I could handle it. I really did. I thought I could handle it on my own.
Yeah.
I went to the emergency room 3 times that week. 3 different emergency rooms. And one of the emergency room doctors who finally saw me said, something, I think that talking with you seem to be sort of a kettle ready to boil. And you have found yourself in a situation where you can take care of yourself. You have a job, you have security, and your psyche has basically said, okay, now we're going to release all your demons and handle it, please. Right. And I tried to do that on my own for a year, and I simply couldn't. I had friends who would come and stay with me for long stretches of time. It never affected my work. No one knew about it at the Met. No one knew. I never exhibited anything, and the only time that it ever affected my work was one time before I was going to do a Berta in Barber of Seville, I thought, I can't do this. I just can't. I can't do this. I'm canceling. I did not cancel. I went on. I said, this is what you do. This is your job, and you're going to go out and do this. And I did, and it was fine. And then I was covering Marilyn Horne. A lot of people know that one of the big things for me when I first started out was I covered Marilyn Horne in Falstaff. And during this time was the biggest, the most difficult time for me in terms of anxiety. I was having anxiety attacks every day, all day long. And it would take everything for me not just to crawl into a corner and start weeping. Because once that started, it just, like, it wouldn't stop. So I would go to the theater every night and watch her do this. Because I thought, this is really important. This is a major artist that you admire enormously, and you need to be there to see this. And this one particular week we were doing the show, I just had a really bad day. And I had a lesson, and I thought, okay, I'm going to go to my lesson, I'm going to go home, and I'm just going to try to sleep. And I couldn't shut my brain off. All I could think about was, well, why are you so important? Why, what are you doing that makes a difference in anybody's life? This is, big questions. This wasn't like, should I go and buy milk or not? This was, big life questions. Right. And it just never shut off. And I went to my lesson, and I sat down on the couch, and I burst into tears. And she looked at me, and she said, kid, I really love you, but I can't help you. I can't help you with this. But I found someone who can help you, and I want you to make a phone call. And I called this magnificent therapist, whom I ended up seeing her for 7 years, and she changed my life. And she taught me, for me, I look at my anxiety time now, which I haven't had this problem, knock wood, for a very long time. But I think for me, it was part of my growing pains. It was something that I just it was an issue that I had my whole life, that I always just kind of put on the back burner because I couldn't handle it. Right. And I finally did. What's interesting is that this particular night, or afternoon, when I made this phone call, I left a message on her machine. I hung up the phone. 5 minutes later, the Met called me and said, Marilyn Horne is canceled, you're going on.
Wow.
And that was my sign. And I felt like God was saying to me, okay, you've decided to take care of yourself. Now I'm going to take care of you, and everything's going to be fine. And that's exactly what happened. Wow. And I went on that night, and I remember I left her apartment. I went straight to the theater. And all I could think about was that I had red nail polish on, and I really had to take that off because Quickly could not have red nail polish on. And I told myself that night, I don't want you to forget a moment of this. This is a really important moment for you. And I want you to actively take stock of every moment. And I could play that night over for you without, practically minute by minute. I remember it so well.
Talk about seizing a moment and then making most of it.
I've talked to many singers. I've talked to colleagues my own age. I've talked to young singers, people who experience this all the time. This is not some phenomena that's solely my own. This is many people go through this. And it's important to me. I remember several years ago I was talking with Maestro Levine, and he said to me, I know you're doing a lot of teaching now. And I said, yeah, I've really started doing master classes and things. And he said, make sure you tell them the whole story. He said, I know that you had issues you had to deal with. Tell them those issues. Don't let it seem like it's all been easy for you, because it hasn't. And so I don't have a problem now telling that story to people, because I think it's important that people know that it hasn't been a cakewalk for me.
Do you think that, because everything had come in so fast? Yeah. Do you think that has anything to do with it?
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. But also, that's just the way my brain works. I'm really good under pressure, and I always have. I get it together pretty easily, and things come to me pretty quickly. And now, for me, one of the most fun things to do is to sort of organize my time, and which I have a lot of help doing, quite frankly, and trying to find out trying to make sure that everything that I do informs something else that I'm doing. Everything is relative, and it all works to trying to make me a better communicator and to connect with my audience in a real way, not some superficial. It's important. I think it's important that people know important things about me. This is an important thing about me. It is not important to me that people know. Locker room talk is not interesting to me.
Right.
Is there anything you eat specifically before
Right.
or how much sleep do you want the night? What
Right.
kind of, I think that's ridiculous. It's not important. There are things that really are important to making up an artist, and I think this is one of them.
Right. At this point of your career, you can have almost everything, and it's still a lot of things that tempt you.
I'm what I'm very excited about now is that there are things that I'm doing, there are projects that I'm starting, and things that I've dreamt about doing for a long time that are finally coming to fruition. I'm finding that the best part of having some sort of notoriety, whatever that is that you can do projects, special projects. The first one I wanted to do was to kind of bring Kate Smith back to the fore.
Mm-hmm.
So I did, and I'd always had a dream of doing a concert that was a tribute to her, and I'm doing that now. I debuted that last year here in New York, and I'm doing it around the country this year. I wanted very much to. I've always wanted to have a summer art song program, and I'm beginning that. I'm doing that for the first time at the end of May in Potsdam, New York. We're doing a seminar
Really?
called the Fall Island Vocal Seminar. And I'm incredibly excited about that because we're inviting 7 singers and 3 pianists to come and work for a week with myself and my dear friend Alan Smith, who is a brilliant pianist and coach and composer. And the two of us are going to work with these singers and pianists and work on communication, on becoming musically autonomous. Singers have a tendency to wait for people to tell them what to do.
Right.
And so I would like to encourage the next generation of singers to have something to say and to bring something to the table. And that's what this basically is all about. So I'm very, very excited that that's happening. And I've got other things cooking too that I'm really excited about. And everything really is tied up around becoming closer to our audiences, creating active audiences rather than passive audiences.
Right.
And I think that's really important.
Your recital work gives you a particular great spot to do that
yes.
in. You have an immediate connection.
Oh, yes.
And you thrive on that.
I love it. And Warren Jones, who's my collaborator in recital, he and I are also traveling around a lot this year, warming up for our Stern Hall recital debut next spring. And we're doing our American Song program. And I've decided that I really, for the most part, from now on, will only sing music in English when I'm singing here in the United States. Because I really feel that it's important in order for audiences to really connect with artists and connect with music. The immediacy of the language is paramount. And I also decided that from now on, I will no longer have any of the text printed in the program. It's incumbent upon me to make sure that everyone understands what is being sung. And I work very, very hard to make that happen. And if texts are particularly difficult, if the poetry is particularly difficult, for instance, when Warren and I do these wonderful songs by James Legge, the late James Legge, 12 songs on Emily Dickinson poems. Emily Dickinson is not the most accessible poet for everybody. So we read the poems out loud before we perform them. We just take turns
That's great.
reading them so the audience now in these concerts hear the poem, have an opportunity to react to that poetry by themselves, and then they hear how the composer reacted
They
to it.
listen instead of
Exactly.
shuffling
Yes.
through
That's
that.
it.
That's right.
Because when you're reading the poem along, you don't actually get the poem and you don't get the song.
That's right.
This way people can leave a recital and actually have a thought about it, rather than just it becomes when you recite this poetry aloud, there's a barrier that's broken between you and the audience. It becomes very, very palpable. And there is nothing like singing songs and looking at an audience that's looking at you. It creates a completely different situation. And every time you perform, the mood is different, the energy is different, because the people are different. And I discovered this a few years ago when I debuted Alan Smith's Covered Wagon Woman here in New York, which is a song cycle he wrote for me. It's a chamber piece for piano, violin, cello, and mezzo. And I decided I don't want them to have these texts. I don't want them to read ahead and see the journey before we've even gotten there.
Right.
And I told the audience beforehand, I said, please do not be put off that you don't have the texts. We're having an experiment tonight. I'm debuting these songs. It's a debut for me. It's a debut for you. And I want us to experience these together. And this is how we're going to do it. And the reaction from the audience was marvelous. And it convinced me that this is the wave of the future. This is the way to go. Because I think it's important for us to become connected to the public. But through the music, through the poetry, that's how you do it.
But it's very important because you can do all these concerts
Yes.
and operas and everything, and also the way you on stage, project yourself, and people can connect with you.
Absolutely.
I think that's so very important.
It is incredibly
Not too
important.
many people can do that.
Well, I think that it's that I think the more barriers that you take down between
That's right.
you and your audience, the better it's going to be. I absolutely think that Met titles are a great thing. I love that. I mean, I sang at the Met before we had titles and after, and it's wonderful. When you're doing a recital, there's something so intimate
Right.
about
That's
that.
right.
And the idea of doing a recital in some place like Carnegie Hall, that's such a giant space that I think that anything we can do to make that more intimate is the best thing to do. And I think that this is going to be the way to go for me. I don't say this is the way that everybody should do it, but for me, I think it works.
I think this will bring a lot of new audience.
That's what I'm hoping.
Listener.
That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah.
You are truly an American singer whose career has been, not entirely, but for the most part,
Yes.
here in America.
Yes.
And within America, correct me if I'm wrong, but you have two home opera houses.
Yes.
The Met and
Seattle.
Tell us what Seattle has meant to you.
Well, see, the first thing, I mean, what was amazing to me in Seattle was the first thing that I ever did there was The Ring. And I discovered that the company, because I was with the company for 3 months doing this Ring cycle, I discovered this amazing family in that house. There's a connection that people have with one another that is just palpable. It's beautiful. And also Seattle is just gorgeous. It's wonderful. And especially in the summertime, I mean, you can't beat it. It has absolutely everything you could possibly want. It has a very, very beautiful quality of life. And being that my husband and I travel everywhere together, it's nice for the two of us to be able to have a home base like that for 3 months, at least while we're doing The Ring. And I've sung L'Italiano in Algeri there, I've done Carmen there, I've done Falstaff there, and I've continued to do The Ring. We'll go back next summer and do The Ring again. But there's just something about that company, and I think it's Spate Jenkins, to be honest.
Sure.
I think it's Spate. That Spate creates, has always created this amazing house that revolves around the happiness of the performers. And the satisfaction of his audience. And I think that anyone who understands that the audience has got to be who you think about when you choose repertoire, when you choose singers, when you choose productions, the audience always has to be the first person you're thinking of. And I think that Spate has never found himself, I mean, maybe he would correct me, but he doesn't seem to have some agenda. For him, the agenda is, are we serving the music and are we serving Seattle? And I just think that's wonderful. And so I have a real allegiance and happiness there.
Talking about, you mentioned about husband.
Mm.
I always see you both together.
Yes.
It's a wonderful feeling, and there's love there.
Oh, yes.
There's one thing I heard. Your husband
Mm-hmm.
is a former wrestler.
Yes.
Well, tell me about it.
Well, David is a former professional wrestler. He wrestled he's wrestled in many countries, but he was basically he ended up living for many years in France, in Paris, and he wrestled all over Europe, but primarily in France and in England. And when I met him, he had discovered being a supernumerary in the opera. This was sort of the job that he did after. I mean, the man has been a performer his whole life, one way or the other, and has been on the road one way or the other his whole life. And I was making my debut at the Bastille singing Mistress Quickly and Falstaff. And David was the innkeeper.
Oh, I see.
And so David, I remember he came in, the first day we came in to rehearse, I saw this guy come in. He was wearing a pair of blue trousers and a white and blue shirt, and he just struck me. There was something about him. I just thought there's going to be some sort of connection here. And he turned out to speak English. He's an Englishman. He's an Englishman. And so he and I started these conversations, and he was fascinated by this young American woman whose passion was Latin jazz and Sergio Mendes in Brazil 66, and I was reading a lot of authors that he was interested in, and this relationship just grew and grew. And a year and a half later, we were married. He moved to the United States.
It's wonderful. And
we've been performing together ever since. We've done many operas together. He was in Rodelinda with me, actually. He shows up later in that scene. We've done Carmen together. He was my De Las Pastia in Seattle. There are any number of things.
What a
that we've
great
done
love
here.
story!
It's terrific, and we were very, it's something to be able to share life in that way. And he's
Did you
marvelous.
learn something? Did you learn how to watch wrestler?
Did I ever learn how to watch wrestling?
Oh, he teaches it. Why?
No, we actually don't watch a lot of wrestling because David does not have a very great opinion of what's going on in wrestling today. So I've heard. I mean, my husband is an extraordinary raconteur. So there's never a dull moment. We have, and it's really wonderful because he's so used to this traveling life and so used to being on the road. And we're so happy in our home life. We live in northeastern PA, and we have a lovely little home, and it's very quiet, and my whole family basically lives, so we all live together, and it's very, very happy with the dogs and the birds and the gardens, and it's a wonderful life.
I think you both are very lucky.
We are. I am incredibly lucky because he came along at a time that was absolutely perfect. There's an adage that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. This is what happened with David and I. I was ready to meet someone like him, and there he was. And my life's never been the same since. And I'm a better singer. I'm a better person because of him.
That's great. You've won, we've got very little time left, but you've won 3, I know, major awards, the Tucker, the Opera Awards, Opera News Awards, and the Opera Voice of the Year for Musical America.
For Music America, yeah.
Which of those 3 meant the most to you?
Oh, the Tucker Award.
Tucker Award was the first, 1999.
Why is that?
1999. Because it was the Tucker Award.
Oh, okay.
because that's actually how I first got to know Renee Fleming. She was a Tucker Award winner. Saw that concert, and I thought, wow. And all of a sudden, they gave me a call. 1999, I was the happiest girl ever. Couldn't believe it.
On that great note, I'm afraid we have to stop, but what a pleasure it's been speaking with you today, Stephanie. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Had a great time.
This has been Classic Talk, speaking with Stephanie Blythe, Classic Talk with Bing and Dennis.